Ezra, stop. Sit down.
And we are live. Happy day of Unleavened Bread, day 1. How y'all doing? It's another opportunity for us to come together and hear and learn of the word of truth that's given to us by the Most High God. All honor goes to the Father through the Son, whose name is Yahushua. In him lies the only hope for salvation. We know that it is obtained by grace through faith, not of works, lest anyone should boast, and given freely as a gift to all who obey him. We understand that if you do not obey him, it is made manifest or made obvious that you do not believe. In this state, you should expect no good thing from the Most High. However, anything that you do get, whether it be a gift of tongues, a gift of prophecy, or any supernatural experience that you may have, it can and it will be used against you in the day of judgment. With that said, peace to the saints that are in the room, to the saints that couldn't make it, but no peace to the wicked. The only thing we say to them is repent that they might live.
Yeah, that's right, boy.
You know what I mean? Let's start it off with John chapter 10. Today we're going to talk about the Passover and about the week of unleavened bread. Who's ever heard of Passover?
As he raised your hand.
Who knows what Passover is? Who can tell me?
Raise your hand.
Zakai, what is Passover? I have a feeling you don't know. No? TJ, what's Passover?
God was going around killing all the firstborn, so we have to take the blood of the lamb and put it on our door.
That's right, right? The Most High God went through and he killed the firstborn of what nation? Huh? What nation? Egypt. He killed the firstborns of Egypt. And then from there, he spared anybody who had blood over their doorposts. So if you put the blood of a lamb over your doorpost, he spared you. And that process is commemorized in a day that we call Passover. That happens at the evening, at the sunset of the 14th day of the month. So if you look on the monitor here, we have, let me fix it. Let's see here. So if you look at the monitor here, we have the 14th day of Abib, which was yesterday, right? That's the Passover. And now that puts us on the 15th day. Anything that's highlighted orange there, that means that there's no work, right? And when there's no work, that means we come together and we're a sacred assembly. So that's why we're here. Usually we have Bible study at night. That's why we're here today. Okay? This is John chapter 10, verse 1.
Ezra, sit down.
John chapter 10, verse 1.
Sit down. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that enters not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that enters in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. Mm-hmm. To him the porter opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name.
That's
and
right.
leads them out.
That's right.
And when he puts forth his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. Mm-hmm. And a stranger they will not follow, but will flee from him, for they know the voice of strangers. They know not the voice of strangers.
Mm-hmm.
This parable spake Yahushua to them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them.
Right? So Yahushua told them a story about sheep. He said, listen, you got to come through the door, right? And the person who come through the door is going to be the owner of the house. And he going to say to the sheep, yo, follow me. And the sheep are going to follow, kind of like a dog, right? A dog is going to know his owner. So you say so to a dog, come here, Cora. And Cora going to come. Meanwhile, TJ go out there and say hi to the dog. She ain't never seen or interacted with TJ because he's scary, right? So she not going to know what to do when TJ say something. She might try to bite TJ. Not for real, right? So you look at these things, and that's the difference. Sheep are similar in that sense. They recognize the master. They recognize the one who they listen to. So he's saying they ain't going to listen to no stranger. You're going to know my sheep because my sheep going to respond to my voice. But that was a parable. People didn't necessarily understand what he meant by the parable. So now he's going to break it down for us.
Then said Yahushua unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep.
He said, I am what?
The door of the sheep.
He said, I am the what?
Door of the sheep.
He said, he's the door of the sheep. So now he just told us a story, and now he's trying to explain what that story means. He said, oh, in that story, I represent the door of the sheep. What else we got?
All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them.
Uh-huh.
I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved.
Right? If anybody enters in to Yahushua as the door, right? Then he shall be what?
Saved.
He shall be saved. Very good. Keep going. Watch this.
And shall go in and out and find pasture.
He said he's going to go in. So anybody who enters in is going to be saved. So he said you're going to be in, and then eventually you're going to go out. And when you go out, you're going to find pasture. Right? Keep going. Watch this.
The thief comes not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy.
There's a thief that's coming. And the purpose of that thief is to steal, to kill, and to destroy. 1 Corinthians. Give me 1 Corinthians chapter 5. We'll do a little bit of talking today. Ain't gonna take up too much time. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 5. Give me verse 6.
Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leavens the whole lump?
Right? He said it ain't no reason to glory. Don't you know that a little bit of leaven leavens the whole lump? Right? Leaven is what causes the bread to rise, right? Anybody seen crackers before? Crackers are flat, right? And then you get a big loaf of bread, right? And that's big and it's fluffy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? So the one that's big and fluffy, that's bread that has leaven in it. The cracker is bread as well, but it has no leaven in it, so it's flat.
I have a question.
Where are you going?
On unleavened bread, why don't we eat other breads?
We're going to talk about that too. Matter of fact, Paul's going to give us the answer. Watch this. Keep reading.
Know ye not that a little leaven leavens the whole lump?
Mm-hmm.
Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as you are unleavened.
Mm-hmm.
For even the Messiah, our Passover, is sacrificed for us.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth.
Right? So the reason why is because we keep the feast, just like Paul just said. So the feast would be the feast of unleavened bread, which is the first day is today. Don't start that talking, boys. All right? The first day of unleavened bread is today. So during the week of unleavened bread, that's 7 days, right? 7 days of unleavened bread, we are to get all of the leaven out of our house. The reason that came about is because we had to move in a hurry. So we had to prepare the Passover, and the Most High God said, in the morning, after this Passover, y'all got to get out of Dodge. Y'all go, because he killed all the firstborns of the Egyptians. So he didn't want us to have a long process of having bread rise. He said, just make it without leaven. So this is why he has us do this for a whole week, so that we can go out we have unleavened bread, and we continue in that. And that helps us remember the time that we came out and we were rescued out of Egypt. Okay? Now, leaven also is used here to represent sin. So the idea of it is if you put a little bit of leaven inside of bread, it's going to make the whole bread rise. Right? And the same thing with sin. If you just have a little bit of sin, right, just sin here and there, or y'all just hanging out with people that sin, but I'm not sinning, right? Each of those scenarios can then spread and cause you to sin, right? This person going right to hell, you hanging out with that person, you end up going right to hell, right? You personally only commit this little tiny sin, you don't even want to do it no more, and then that turned into a whole bunch of other sins, right? That's how sin works, that's how leaven works, so that's what Paul is talking about here. But notice what he said. He said Yahushua is what? He said the Messiah was what?
Messiah, our Passover, is sacrificed for us.
Right? So he called the Messiah our Passover. And there's a reason why he says that. Right? Remember, the Passover, what we had to do is we had to kill a lamb, sacrifice the lamb, and put the blood over our doors. And that signified to the angel of death that came to kill, steal, and destroy, right? That destroy the firstborns. Right? That angel of death, when that angel came through, it signified that I can't touch that door. Anybody within that door is safe. Right? Because it got blood over it. It got the blood of the lamb over there. Right? So now let's try to understand how the Messiah turns into that. This is 1 Peter chapter 1. First Peter chapter 1, give me verse 13.
Wherefore, gird up the loins of your mind. Be sober in hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Yahushua the Messiah. As obedient children, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lusts in your ignorance. But as he which has called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation.
Yeah.
Because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. And if you call on the Father, who without respect of persons judges according to every man's work, pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold.
He said you weren't redeemed with corruptible things like silver and gold. In other words, Yahushua bought us. Right? That's what he means by redeemed. He bought us. But he's saying he didn't buy us with something like silver, and he didn't take a whole bunch of money and be like, yeah, you know what I'm saying, I'll pay for these boys with money. He said you were how do you say we were redeemed?
From your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of the Messiah, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot.
So he said we were redeemed by the blood of the Messiah as if he were a lamb without blemish and without spot. Well, that's the exact type of lamb that we needed for the Passover. We needed a lamb without blemish and without spot for us to keep the Passover. So that's why Paul is calling him our Passover, and that's the same reason why Peter is calling him the sacrifice of a lamb, right? The blood of the lamb, just like Peter just said, is what saved us. All right, that is saving us, rather. In the same way, that is what saved us when it came to the Passover, our ancestors. Keep going, watch this.
Who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifest in these last times for you.
Right? So foreordained mean that the Most High God told us about him beforehand. The Most High God set it in order before everything came to be. Right? So it was already foreordained, just meaning that the Most High God already planned for it. Right? But he was made manifest. In other words, he is made obvious. He is made visible to all of us in these last days. Right? So it was something that had to be documented so that people could believe it. Right? Let's move on. Let's go to Colossians. Colossians chapter 2, we're going to start at verse 1. Colossians chapter 2, verse 1. Watch what the book say.
For I wish that you knew what great conflict I have for you, and for them at Laodicea, and for as many as have not seen my face in the flesh, that their hearts might be comforted, being knit together in love, and unto all riches of the full assurance of understanding, to the acknowledgement of the mystery of God and the Father and of the Messiah, in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words.
He said, this I say. So he said, I'm about to say this because I don't want anybody to trick you with some clever words. I don't want anybody to say anything to you and you be like, oh, that makes sense, and it really don't make sense. Right? That happens all the time. So he's saying, look, I'm about to say this to you because I don't want nobody to trick you. Watch this.
For though I be absent in the flesh, yet am I with you in the spirit, joying and beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in the Messiah. As ye have therefore received the Messiah, Yahushua the Lord, so walk in him. Rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith as you have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit.
He said, beware, perk up, time to listen, right? Whenever the book tells us to beware, it's time to pay attention. He said, beware lest anyone spoil you, right? In other words, makes you bad, makes you worthless, right? Through what?
Philosophy and vain deceit.
Through philosophy and vain deceit. In other words, empty speech. Empty speech that's meant to cause you to believe something that's not true, right? Let's hear an example of what this might be.
After the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after the Messiah. For in him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power.
So now, around this same time, guess what people are celebrating?
Easter.
Christians are celebrating Easter. Catholics are celebrating a time called Lent. Right? That's where they, you know what I'm saying, they give up, they call themselves giving up some type of, you know what I'm saying, food or something. I don't know how that stuff works. Right? And then they put this, you know what I'm saying, this cross on their head. And they call it Ash Wednesday or some foolishness like that. Something they came up with. But they celebrate this stuff. And they supposedly believe in the same God that we do. But they've been spoiled with vain deceit. People have told them things with clever words. They made it sound good, but it wasn't the truth. So now they follow traditions of men that's not the truth. Right? This is exactly what Paul told us to beware of. Everything we do got to come from the book. When we talk about the Passover, you see, I can read it to you. Tell one of them Catholics to read to us something about Lent. Show us where Easter was described and commanded. You know what I'm saying? Show us where in the book how we're supposed to celebrate Easter. What are we supposed to do? Where did it come from? You're not going to find it. You think the Most High God talking about darn bunnies with darn eggs? Who ever seen a bunny lay an egg? Not anybody. Right? Because it's fake. Fake is deceit. It's empty. It is meaningless. That makes it vain. And people come up with stories behind it. That makes it philosophy. Right? Keep going. Watch this.
In whom you are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, in putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by circumcision of the Messiah. Buried with him in baptism, wherein also you are risen with him.
Right? So the whole idea is the Most High God sent the Messiah to die for us as a sacrifice. But then he resurrected him. He brought him back up. So he died and then he came back to life. That's the whole idea of what we're dealing with. So they're saying what Paul's telling us here is that not only were we buried with him spiritually, but we came back up with him spiritually. That makes us new. Right? Keep going. Watch this.
Buried with him in baptism, wherein also you are risen with him through the faith of the operation of God, who has raised him from the dead. And you being dead in your sins, in the uncircumcision of your flesh, has he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, blotting out the handwriting ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it.
So now the handwriting that was against us is talking about our law. So our law had judgments for sin. Right? Ultimately, every person that sinned was going to be cursed. In other words, death right? So the wages of sin is death. We've heard that, right, in the book. So the wages of sin end up being death. And what he's done is he died for us. So that's what it's talking about when he said he nailed it to the cross. Him being sacrificed on the cross caused him to take on a penalty that he didn't deserve because he never sinned. Right? So he paid for us by his blood. Had he sinned, it wouldn't be a proper payment because really he'd be paying for himself. That's his own wages. But since he didn't sin, then him spilling blood onto death was not appropriate. It was against the law. Right? The law promised one thing. He said, if you do these things, you shall live by them. Talking about the statutes of the law. Well, Yahushua did them. So therefore, for him to stay dead would have been against the law. So the Most High God had to keep his promise, and he resurrected him. Right? Everything ties back into the law. That's where Christians go wrong because they have the presupposition that the law is done away with. So they miss the richness and they misunderstand the book. The law actually makes things orderly, right? The law puts borders around your thinking. You can't go just where you can't just think whatever you want to think, right? That's like what the book says. It said, broad is the way, you know what I'm saying? Broad is the way, what is it? Broad is the way to what?
Broad is the way that leads to destruction.
Yeah, broad is the way that leads to destruction, right? But we have to walk a tight rope, right? A narrow path. Now, if you got a broad way, that means it's big. That means you can think whatever you want to think. You can do whatever you want to do. You can imagine whatever you want to imagine. But that leads you to destruction. Our path, we have to make sure that we think specifically what's correct, specifically what is true. That means we have to restrict ourselves using the law. And once you restrict your thinking using the law and you require that anything that you believe based off of the New Testament or otherwise is based in our law and then supported by our prophets and then promoted by our apostles, at that point, then you can take something, you can run with it. Right? But if you can't show that consistency in the book, then you got to shut your darn mouth. Right? There's no other way. There's no other way to do it. You just got to shut up. You just got to rock with it. You got to do what the book say and roll. You can't do this stuff. People out here teaching with imaginations. But if you imagine past what the book say, that's dangerous. Right? Keep going. Watch this.
Let no man therefore judge you in any meat or in drink or in respect of a holiday, holy day, or of a new moon, or of a Sabbath, or of the Sabbath days.
Right? So the Passover for us, and the day of unleavened bread, the first day of unleavened bread, and the week of unleavened bread, and the feast of the first fruit sheaf waving, all of those are holy days for us. Those are set apart days. Those are days given to us by the Most High God. Right? What you will never see in the book is Easter and Christmas and all these other days that they come up with. Right? You'll never see them in the book. The book are the days that we end up talking about. And right now we're talking about Passover and unleavened bread. Right? Watch this.
Which are a shadow of things to come.
So Passover and unleavened bread are a shadow of things to come, is what Paul is telling us. So that means something's coming, and what we're doing is a shadow of that. That means it's not the real thing, right? But something is coming that's going to be the real thing, and this has the shape of it, right? If you look at a shadow, if I shine the light on one of y'all right now, it's going to cast a shadow. And the shadow is going to look like who?
Like you.
It's going to look like you if the light is on you, right? Or it's going to look like Azariah if the light is on her, right? The shadow is going to look like whoever is casting the shadow. So what we're doing now looks like something that's coming. And what's coming is going to be the real thing. And right, what we're doing now, as great as it is, now as much as we love eating and enjoying one another and all that, oh, there's something that's going to be better. It's something that's going to be full. It's going to be the whole picture. It's not just going to be a shadow. So that's why we keep these days, because our book is telling us that something's coming. And we hold on to the shadow so that we can get used to what's coming. Right? There's going to be a full version of the Passover coming. A full version of unleavened bread coming. Grab 1 Corinthians chapter 11. When it talks about the shadow of things to come, it's talking about the Messiah. This 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Give me verse 23.
For I received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that Yahushua, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread, and when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, Take, eat. This is my body which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye as often as ye drink it in remembrance of me.
Right? So now we had to drink blood in the form of wine and eat bread in the form of his body. Right? Or eat his body in the form of bread. Right? That would be unleavened bread. Keep going. Watch this.
What, boy? You had a question?
No, I just remember us doing that last year.
After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. Do ye as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Lord's death till he come.
Right? So that represents the Passover. Right? Again, it all centers around the blood, because the Passover was centered around the blood of the lamb. And now we're learning that the Messiah is the lamb. So that's why it was a shadow of things to come, because the Messiah ended up being a sacrifice for us. Right? It's Romans chapter 6. So now we got to understand what the sacrifice means. Romans chapter 6, give me verse 16. It's Romans chapter 6, verse 16.
Shh, Ezra, quiet. Shh. Lay down. Know ye not that to whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants you are to whom you obey.
He said, whoever you yield yourself service to obey, you become a servant. Let's hear about it.
Whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness.
So if I commit sin, that makes me a servant of what?
Sin.
Sin. I'm a servant of sin. When you're a servant of sin, that means you're in what?
Bondage.
You're in bondage to sin at that point. Right? That makes you in bondage to sin. When you're in bondage, that means you don't have choice to do all the things that you might want to do. So that's why a person that sins is not free. Right? You feel free because it's a whole lot of sins. You can do a whole bunch of different sins. But guess what you can't do? And guess what they say they can't do all the time in church?
Stop sinning.
They can't stop sinning. They say it all the time. It's impossible to stop sinning. Y'all go talk to some of y'all Christian friends and get talking to them and be like, oh yeah, we have to stop sinning completely. They gonna look at y'all like you crazy. They say, oh no, that's impossible. Nobody can stop sinning. That's why we need Jesus. And that stuff makes sense when you don't got no book. When you don't know, that makes sense for somebody to say, like, you're right. Why would I need Jesus if I could just stop sinning all by myself? That is the purpose. Yeah, Jesus is the one. He know that we can't stop sinning. That's why I need him. No, that's not what he said. Why do we need Yahushua?
To take the curse off.
To remove the curse from our past sins. That's what he does. He forgives us of our past sins. He don't forgive us for future sins. He's not looking to be like, oh, I'm happy you found me. Go ahead and keep sinning. Don't worry, I'll take care of all of it. No, quite the opposite. Keep going. Watch this.
I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as ye have yielded your members servants to uncleanness and iniquity unto iniquity, even so now yield your members servants to righteousness unto holiness.
Right? So now what he's saying is you used to commit sin, but turn from sin. So turn away from the sin that you're doing. And then now yield your members, your facilities, your body to righteousness. Start doing righteousness. So that's our goal. Right? That's what Yahushua is telling us to do. He's telling us to stop sinning. So let's say sinning is this direction. You stop doing that. Then we got to find whatever direction he is and then come to him. Kind of like when we were playing outside. Right? We had to walk to that pole. We going in the wrong direction. He telling us stop going the wrong direction. Turn this way and walk that way. Right? Keep going. No, actually, grab 1 John chapter 7. 1 John chapter 7. John chapter 7. First John chapter 1 is what I want.
John chapter 7 or 1 John 1?
1 John 1. I want 1 John 1 verse 5. 1 John chapter 1 verse 5.
This then is the message which we have heard of him, and declare unto you that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all.
That's right. So now, God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. Right? So one of the plagues that was put on Egypt before we escaped, or before they let us go, was a plague of darkness. Right? So there was darkness, the book say thick darkness, a darkness that you could feel. Right? So nobody could see where they're going. What happened was, anybody who was an Israelite didn't experience that darkness. So he made it dark for the Egyptians and left light for us. And now we learn that there is no darkness in the Most High. So now, what happens if we're walking in darkness? Let's see.
If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth.
Just like if an Egyptian say that, oh, no, I'm with the Israelites, but he's in darkness, that would tell us, no, you're not. Most High God put darkness around you. Right? So in the same way, if we're walking in a way that shows that we are walking in darkness, in other words, if we're walking in sin, it's no way that we can say, oh, I'm friends with God. God is rocking with me. God loves me. Right? Those things can't be said. For God to love you, you have to keep his commandments. The Most High God is available. His love is available to everybody. Right? It's available to everybody. But you have to keep the commandments. That's the only way to remain in his love, to abide in his love, as the book would say. Keep going.
But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Yahushua the Messiah, his son, cleanses us from all sin.
Right? So at that point, we would be cleansed from all sin by what?
His blood.
Again, his blood. Remember, he is our Passover. For the Passover, you would have a lamb. For the lamb, you would slaughter that lamb and sacrifice the lamb. And then you take the blood of the lamb and you put it over your door. And that caused your firstborn not to be taken the night that the angel of death came by. Right? So that's what he represents for us. He represents blood that will save us. Let's go to Exodus chapter 12. Let's hear a little bit more about Passover. It's Exodus chapter 12, verse 21. Exodus chapter 12, verse 21.
Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover.
Right? So take a lamb according to your families and then kill the Passover.
And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin. And
you shall take what?
A bunch of hyssop.
You shall take a bunch of what?
Hyssop.
So you have to take a bunch of what's called hyssop and then do what with it?
And dip it in the blood that is in the basin and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin.
So the lintel is the top piece of the door. And the two side posts come down. So the middle part is going to be your door. That's what you walk through, right? So he said what you have to do is you got to rub blood on the lintel, the top part of the door, and the two side parts. And that's blood with hyssop dipped into it, right? That all got to be put on the door. Watch this. Keep going.
and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin.
Uh-huh.
And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning.
Right? And then you have to stay in the house until the morning. That's the part that we sometimes forget. Not only do you have to identify your door, but the next thing you have to do is you have to put the blood on the door. Then after you put the blood on the door, you have to walk in the door, and you got to stay there until it's safe to come out. So then we go back and we started off with Yahushua saying that he's the door. Right? We started off with John chapter 10. He told us that he is the door. Then he also told us that his sheep know his name, or know his voice. So it's important that when we're told to do something by the Most High God, that we obey it. If we yield our members, you know what I'm saying, yield our members to sin, then we become servants of sin. But if to righteousness, we become servants to righteousness, and we're free of sin. And that's the name of the game for us, is to be free of sin. Let's grab Matthew chapter 27. Let's see what happened to the door. Remember, Yahushua said he's the door. So if Yahushua is the door, what we should expect according to the Passover is we have to put blood on the door. It's Matthew chapter 27, verse 27.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Yahushua into the common hall and gathered unto them the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had planted a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews.
Right? So they put thorns on his head. What would thorns do?
Cut you.
Thorns are going to cut him. And when you cut, what happens?
You bleed.
You bleed. Right? Watch what else happened to him.
And they spit upon him and took the reed and smote him on the head.
They did what?
They spit on him and took the reed and smote him on the head.
So then they spit on him and they took the reed and they smote him on the head. What does it mean to smote something?
They hit him.
Hit him. What were we told to do with the door for our Passover?
Hit the door.
It says strike the lintel. Right? That means you have to hit it with the blood. You have to boom and hit it with the blood. Well, they hit him and made blood come out. Right? Let's see. Jump over to John chapter 19. Give me verse 28. John chapter 19, verse 28.
After this, Yahushua, knowing that all things were now accomplished. That
So
the
Yahushua
scripture
is
might
right
be
now,
fulfilled.
he's on the cross. He's hanging on the cross. And he knew all things were fulfilled. It's time, he's basically saying. Watch what he said.
And he said, I thirst.
Uh-huh.
Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled the sponge with vinegar and put it on hyssop,
Uh-huh.
and put it in his mouth.
Right? So they took hyssop and they put it in his mouth.
And when y'all,
So not only does he have blood from the thorns and from being beat up and from having holes drilled, nailed into his hands and all that, right? Not only is all that going on, but now he also has hyssop, just like our law told us to do. Our law said we have to dip hyssop in the blood and put it on the door. Well, he's the door. He also has blood coming down him. Well, now you got to put hyssop in him. Let's keep going. Watch this.
when Yahushua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished.
Uh-huh.
And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost.
Right? He said, it is finished, and he gave up the ghost, his spirit. Right? Where does the spirit go when you die?
It goes back to God.
Spirit goes back to God. What happens to the soul?
It's dead in the dirt.
Dead in the dirt. Your soul is buried with you.
Does the bones disappear? Like,
Nah, your bones.
I mean, not the bones, the skin.
Yeah, the skin rots away. Skin rots away, and your blood spills and absorbs into the land, and that's where our soul is. All right, our soul absorbs it into the land with the blood. Right, but the book say the life is in the blood, so our life is in our blood. Grab John chapter 15. So now we know he's our Passover. We also know that he is our door, right? And what's the significance of our door? Why do we need the door?
To save our first born.
That's right. If we inside of the door, are we safe or in danger?
I mean, if we put the blood on the door and we're inside the door, we're safe.
That's a good job, right? We put the blood on the door and go inside, that makes us safe, right? If we go outside that door, then we in danger. Let's see what happens here. This is John chapter 15. Give me verse 9.
As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love.
If you keep my commandments, you will remain, or abide, that means to remain. You will remain or stay in my love, right? So our condition is you have to keep the commandments. If you do that, then you can stay in my love, in Yahushua's love. Just like Yahushua stayed in the Father's love, right? So that means Yahushua kept the commandments of the Father. The commandments of the Father came by way of who?
Yahushua.
The commandments of the Father came by way of Moses.
Oh yeah, the law.
Yahushua kept the law of Moses. So he remained in the Father's love. He earned all of life because he paid with death that he didn't deserve. So now he can say, okay, I will give you commandments. And if you stay in my love, then I'll resurrect you. I'll keep you safe. But you have to stay inside of my love. That's the house. That's the door. We have to stay inside of that door.
Ezra, sit out.
Right? Watch this.
As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Continue in my love. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I kept the Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. This is the commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends.
Right? Greater love has no man than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends. Yahushua laid down his life, right? Watch this.
And you are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you.
So now, the condition is, Yahushua laid down his life for you if you do what he commands. The opposite of that would be saying, if you did not do what he commands, he did not lay down his life for you. So that means he wasn't your sacrifice. That means you didn't have blood over your door, which means you are in danger. Right? It's important that we understand these concepts because this is what makes it simple for us. A lot of people, they're gonna teach the Bible to you, they're gonna teach all this stuff, and it's not gonna make sense. Right? Even in their simplicity, they make it complicated. Right? Grab Mark chapter 7. Let's understand how do we remain in his love. Matter of fact, let's go to Galatians. Let's go to Galatians chapter 5 first. Because Mark 7 is going to tell us how do we get out of his love.
Ezra, sit down.
Ezra, sit down.
It's Galatians chapter 5. What I want? 17? 15 maybe? Fruits of the Spirit.
You want...
Probably 15? 16?
16, yeah.
16? It's
No.
It's Galatians.
22.
It's Galatians chapter 5, verse 22.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law.
Right? These are the fruits of the Spirit. If we walk in these fruits of the Spirit, there is nothing in the law that condemns us. Right? Let's read it one more time.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law.
There is no law against that. Right? It's important that we understand it. If we walk in that, there is no law against it. That moves us further. That moves us towards God. Right? That moves us towards the Most High, towards Yah. But there are also things that will lead us away. Right? Let's read about some stuff that'll lead us away. This is Mark chapter 7, verse 21. Actually, go back to John 15. Where do we leave off in John 15? Watch what he says.
14.
This is John 15, verse 14. Watch what he says. He said, greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. You are my friend if you keep my commandments. But there's one more verse right after that. Watch this.
Henceforth, I call you not servants, for the servant knows not what his Lord does.
Mm-hmm.
But I've called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I've made known unto you.
That's the one after.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, give me one before. Give me 13 then.
Greater love has no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends.
Uh-huh.
And ye are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you.
Uh-huh.
Henceforth, I call you not servants.
Okay, give me. If that was 13, give me 12.
This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you.
Right? So the commandment is that we love one another just like he loved us. Right? And then we see the fruits of the Spirit. What was the first one? The first one was love. So the first thing we have to understand is, what is love? What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is.
1 Corinthians chapter 13. Give me verse 1. Then we still got to go get Mark chapter 7. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1.
Baby, come here.
Though I speak with tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal.
Mm-hmm.
And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have no charity, I am nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profits me nothing.
Uh-huh.
Charity suffers long.
He said, this is what charity is. So charity is another word for love, right? So he said, love suffers long.
And is kind.
And it's kind.
Charity envies not.
He said, love envies not.
And charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up.
Uh-huh.
Does not behave itself unseemly.
Uh-huh.
Seeks not her own.
Uh-huh.
Is not easily provoked.
It's not easily provoked. Watch this.
And thinks no evil.
It doesn't even think about evil. When you talk about love, you not even think about evil. Watch this.
Rejoice not in iniquity.
Right? You don't rejoice in iniquity if you're talking about love. But watch this one.
But rejoices in the truth.
You gotta rejoice in the truth. Right? That's a description of what love is. So when he says love one another, one of the things that we have to think about is we can't be rejoiceful in iniquity. In other words, we can't be happy in sin. So in order to love your neighbor as yourself, or to love one another like he loved us, in order to do that, that means you have to put off all iniquity. You can't sin. It's the only way to do it. It's important that we understand this point. So then we ask ourselves, what is sin? Well, First John chapter 3 will tell us that sin is transgression of the law. Right? And so a Hebrew Israelite would tell us, well, that's the law of Moses. And they would be right. But then based off of what we just read, Paul just told us the law cannot condemn us if we walk in the fruits of the Spirit. The reason for that is the law tells us that Yahushua is coming. And then in the law itself, we don't have to get it, but in the law itself, it tells us that man that comes that's like Moses from the brethren, right? Whatever he says will be required of you. So what Yahushua did is Yahushua kept the law. He remained in the love of the Father. That's what we read in John 15 just now. He remained in the love of the Father. Therefore, he kept the law. Then he took on us as our Passover sacrifice. He took on our sins. That means he purchased us. He redeemed us. Right? Because he paid the price that we should have paid. And he did not owe what he paid. So that means he redeems us. That means he owes us. He did that for the purpose of those that are called his friends.
He owns us.
You are his friend if you do what he commands or what Moses commands.
What he commands.
He says, you are my friend if you do what I command. What you got?
When are we gonna make unleavened bread?
Son, be quiet.
I don't know what we're gonna do. But yeah, we are his friend as long as we do what he commands. What he commands, not what Moses commands. Matter of fact, if you look at Yahushua, he separates Moses' commandments from his. Real quick, grab Mark chapter 7, verse 9. Right? If you look on the screen here, what do we got there, TJ? What does that look like?
People walking to the kingdom.
It's a narrow path directly to the kingdom. Right? So you got a couple footsteps. The white footsteps represent the current footsteps. That's the footstep that you can take right now. Right? And we walking. We got to stay on the narrow path.
You want Mark what?
It's Mark chapter 7, verse 9.
And he said unto them, full well, you reject the commandment of God that you may keep your own tradition.
He said, you reject the whose commandment?
The commandment of God.
Right. This is the commandment of God, he said, that you rejecting. But guess who told us about it?
That you may keep your own tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and whoso curses father or mother, let him die the death.
Let him die the darn death if you curse your father.
But you say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is korban, that is to say a gift, by whatsoever you might be profited by me, he shall be free. And you suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of God non effect through your tradition, which you have delivered, and many such like things you do.
All right. So you see that when Yahushua, and this is not the only time, it's many times that whenever Yahushua refers to Moses, and I can give you a couple, we ain't got to grab it, we can get a couple more examples. In the beginning of the Gospels, he healed some folks of leprosy. And he told them, go give the sacrifice that Moses told you to give as a witness. Right? He always separates Moses' commandments from his. There's a reason for that, because Moses told the people through his commandment that there would be somebody else that comes, and whatever that somebody else says, you got to do it. That's required of you. So he has to separate himself from Moses. Grab John chapter 5 real quick. John chapter 5, you're going to have to help me out with what verse. I want to say it's
12.
probably 35, maybe 36.
21.
I can do none of my own self.
25.
I'm looking for when you say, you know what I'm saying, you have Moses.
Oh, that's 26.
Are you if you were to believe Moses, you would believe me.
31.
That's 44. We'll start at 44.
44. So this is John chapter 5 verse 44. Watch what the book say.
How can you believe which receive honor one of another and seek not the honor that comes from God only?
Watch this.
Do not think that I will accuse you to your father. There is one that accuses you, even Moses, in whom you trust.
He said, Moses, look how he separates himself. He said, even Moses in whom you trust. Watch this.
For had you believed Moses, you would have believed me.
He said, if you believe Moses, you would have believed me.
For he
which
wrote of
clearly lets you know we're not saying exactly the same thing. Right? He tells you because he did what?
For he wrote of me.
He talking about Deuteronomy chapter 18. He wrote, Moses told her, he said, it's going to be somebody else that come. And they're going to be just like me. And whatever that person say, it's required of you. So that's why Yahushua can say, hey, I kept the commandments of Moses and then stayed in the Father's love. Through that, I made a purchase of everybody else. So now it's up to me what happens to people. When Moses gave the commandment, if you did this, you died a death. But now, I purchased the whole bang. I died to death for them. So now it's up to Yahushua what happens to us. Now the stakes is higher. Instead of just dying and going into the ground and letting your blood spill, well, no. Now you get resurrected and you either get sent to hell to burn forever in eternal fire, or you get resurrected onto the kingdom. For us to walk into the kingdom, this is what we're dealing with. Right? This is what we're dealing with. We know that going forward is love. Right? That's how we move forward on that path, is with love. And with the fruits of the Spirit. And if you have the fruits of the Spirit, guess what? You can't sin. Right? Both of them don't work together. You can't do one or the other. You can't sin if you have the fruits of the Spirit. So that's how it looks with the fruits of the Spirit. It pushes us forward. Right? The fruits of the Spirit is going to be a step for us. That's how we take steps towards the kingdom. What happens if we turn around and start walking where we already walked?
He who looks back is not fit for. What do you say? He's
not worthy.
He who started the plow and looks back is not fit for the kingdom of heaven.
You start going back, you a sinner again. And everything that you've done that might have been righteous, forgotten. You turn your way towards God and turn away from sin. Everything you did that was unrighteous, forgotten. Right? The Most High God's way is equal. Let's finish off with Mark. This is Mark chapter 7. Because we can see clearly what we need to do to move forward, right? This is how the narrow path works. Y'all know how y'all had the blindfolds on?
Yep.
And y'all was walking? It felt like you was walking straight, didn't it?
Yes.
You thought you were walking perfectly straight. You can look. I let everybody look. And you thought I was walking straight to this pole. You thought you could do it. We put the blindfolds on you. We allow you to look. And you feel. Can't nobody tell you that you wasn't about to hit the pole. But every one of y'all, except for Eli who cheated, every one of y'all drifted to the right or to the left. Well, that's what this walk is like, except it's worse. It's worse. Because imagine doing that, but every time you sin, somebody spin you around in circles. Right? So you got your blindfold on, and then you walk in, you think you're going straight, then you sin. Then you get spun around in circles. You don't know what direction you're going, but you feel like, nah, I'm still going the same way. And you get spun around because you sin again. And every time you sin, you just get spun around in circles. And you get dizzy. Do you think any of us would have been able to reach that pole if we dizzy and spun around in circles every time we make a mistake?
No.
No. Well, that's how life is. That's how it is. The more we sin, we will never reach the kingdom. The only way to reach the kingdom is to obey the way of the Most High God. So in the same way that we think and we can take a step, is the same way that we think and we can have behavior that pushes us towards the Most High God. So these are the behaviors that we have to avoid. This is Mark chapter 7, verse 21.
20.
20?
19.
No, I don't want 19.
20.
Yeah, 20.
And he said, that which comes out of the man, that defiles the man.
Uh-huh.
For from within, out of the heart of man, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications.
So hold on. Let's take it slow. So out of the evil thoughts out of the heart of man comes what?
Proceed evil thoughts, adulteries,
fornication,
murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness.
And foolishness.
All these evil things come from within and defile the man.
So now, that creates a border around us to keep us in the path. We know that if we decide to move towards wickedness, then we be turning to the left and back. Right? If we decide for fornication, we turn to the left. We veering off to the left. All those things are going to take us off of the path. right? We don't know that we're going off of the path unless we know the book. The book is telling us that these things are letting you know that you're not on the path. If you're not doing any of those things, then you walking straight ahead. That is how we enter into the kingdom. If at any point the Most High God show up here or we die and we're not on that path, we end up right in hell. So that's why we have to turn away from all sins and remain in that square. You know what that square is? That's the door. That's the door. If we stay inside of the house, inside of the door that has the blood on it, with the hyssop, over the doorpost, then we can enter into the kingdom. Right? If we get the leaven out of us, that will be these sins right here, then we can enter into the kingdom. Otherwise, we just killing time. Right? Because at the end of the day, if the man show up here, he going to ask one question. What are you going to say? Are you without iniquity? Matter of fact, we're going to ask, the book say we're going to ask him a question. Let's grab it. It's Matthew chapter 7. It's Matthew chapter 7. What I want, 21? It's Matthew chapter 7, verse 21.
Yeah. Not everyone that says unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Look, not everybody that come up to him like, Lord, Lord, or Master, Master is going to enter into the kingdom. Right? A lot of people think they're getting into the kingdom. Right? They think they on the path. Just like we thought we were walking straight when we was outside. They think it's all good. But what's going to happen is the Most High God be like, why are you calling me master? You didn't do what I say. Watch this. Keep going.
But he that does the will of my Father, which is in heaven.
Uh-huh.
Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name?
Mm-hmm.
And in thy name have cast out devils.
Uh-huh.
And in thy name done many wonderful works.
Oh, people showing up to church every weekend. Right? They stay long. They go to day and night service. And they do Wednesday night Bible study. Right? And they serve on the usher board. And they join the praise dance team. And they help with the treasury. They do all these different things. They give their money to the poor. They do all these different things. They prophesy in his name. Guess what, though? They still cussing. They still lying. They still committing adultery. What's going to happen? This is what's going to happen. Watch this.
And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity.
He said, I never knew you. Get away from me, you who work iniquity. You know why he says, I never knew you? Because the sheep, his sheep, hear his voice. And if you haven't turned away from these sins, which are iniquity, that means you haven't heard his voice. Specifically, the sins that are up on the board, the sins that we read about from the apostles and that we read about from Yahushua, those are the sins that will keep us out of the kingdom. That's what's required of us. And from there, we need to walk in love and the fruits of the Spirit. And that'll move us forward towards the Most High God. We do those things, we won't sin. We can't sin. Right? Any questions?